Alright, so this has been sitting around for far too long. It's my old tape deck. Took it apart about 7 years ago. And I don't know why I took it apart. I think it needs belts. I noticed that there's no belts on it. And there is one belt. But, you can see it back there, but it's kind of turned it into goo. So I'm thinking it was belts is the reason I took it apart, but I don't remember. It's been so long. I did save all the screws, unfortunately. It looks like they fell out. And this is how it's been sitting for, like I said, about 6 or 7 years. So I'd like to get this working. I ordered belts, hoping they're the right ones. And here's more screws. I'm not really sure which ones go where. Hoping I have all the parts. The only thing is I couldn't find the. There's little things that go on the front. There's covers that go over the front of each deck, each side. But I'll find those later, hopefully. That shouldn't keep it from working. So first things first. Let's see if we can get the new belts that I bought. Hopefully they're the right ones, and let's at least get those on and see if this thing powers up. So let's get this out of the way. And let's get this apart. Let's do this side first. Trying to see the easiest way to take this apart. Looks like you take just this plastic off. That'll work. Oh wow, that couldn't be any easier. This. Oh wow. This is what happens to rubber belts over time. They just turn to goo. I think that's going to require some alcohol to clean that off. There's more underneath. Looks like I'm going to have to take that whole piece off. Does to your hands. That's why I'm wearing gloves. This stuff does not come off. Might have to go get some Q-tips or something. Okay, so that I'm not tracking more or bringing more dirt into it. I'm itching my gloves. But yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I used to use this all the time. And I moved, and it sat on a shelf. You know, I basically put it someplace just because I didn't have a stereo system hooked up. And then a couple months went by and I hooked it up and I put a tape in to play. Because I have recordings back in the early 90s, 80s that I used to record. There was a guy that was on at night. Remember, it was Howard Stern in the morning and Greaseman at night. And yeah, Greaseman's one of those guys you either love him or hate him. He's not on the radio anymore. I think he's on the internet still. But I used to record him as a kid. And I have recordings of him. And other stuff, you know. They played, you know, they had like 80s Saturday night, so I went to pop one of those tapes in, and I think that's the tape that's stuck in here, in this tray here. And it just suddenly didn't work. But I mean, I remember I got this back in, God, I think this was early 90s. I want to say like 92-ish. And I remember most kids wanted video games and all that kind of stuff, and I wanted stereo equipment. I think my parents, being that the type of stereo equipment I wanted was much more expensive than video games, I think my parents probably wished I wanted video games. It would have been cheaper. Well, this was a couple $100 back in the day. And back then I didn't have internet, so everything I saw was out of, the only thing I really had, I didn't know of like J.C. Whitney or Crutchfield or anything like that. The only thing I had at the time was the Sears catalog or J.C. Penney catalog. And they only had a very limited selection. I don't know how far down this goes. If I remember correctly, it was pretty flush. Alright, let's look at this stuff here. Spin this around. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with the other side. I'm going to try to get that tape out, because I'm not going to be able to spin these pulleys with the tape in there, because they'll just continue to eat it more. But this looks like it's part of the loading mechanism. Yeah, there's a lot of crud on there. And that's the important part. If you're doing this, you want to get all this crud off, because the last thing you want is the belt to stick to it and ruin the new belt. And it's not going to work, anyway, if it's a stick like that. You want the surface to be as clean as possible. This isn't too bad, but there's some stuff coming off, so I'll just take the time to clean it. Something like this, you might be tempted to use something like Goo Gone. And that might work, but it's pretty aggressive. I've seen that tear plastics up pretty bad, and I think this is, I can't really tell with these gloves on, but I think these are actually, they look like metal, but I think they're plastic. Not catching anymore. Okay, now on this. Okay, so looks like, if you notice, zoom in here. There's these three little pegs over here. There's three here. And on this, let's see, is there... Doesn't look to be any. No, there's that. I don't see it in here, which is odd. But there's 3 little pegs, and that's usually what, because that's where the motor's going to be. When you put this on, that's the pulley sits in there. So what they do is they give you this. I'm assuming this is how it's going to go, because I assume it wraps around here. What you do is you bend this around those pegs. And it's not working for me. What happens is that holds it in place. This must be a new belt because it's really tight. Hopefully it's the right one. Those pegs hold the belt in place so that you can put the top part on. And just make sure that it's not, that the belt is flat. It will be once the pulley's on. Where's the other cassette? What do I do with it? There it is. Alright, so this one looks like it wraps around. Here. Oh, here they are. See these 2 little guys here? This is where the spindle goes. So you want to put the belt around that and not get it under the pulley. I'm doing a real bang up job here. Right now, in theory, the idea is this pulley, let's move this over here so you can see, this pulley here is going to fall right between this. So once we have it on, all we have to do is push this loose and it should fall in place, or we use some tweezers, something like this to grab the belt, move it in place. Same thing with this. Same thing with this. Wraps around this one here, goes around these pegs. So let's give that a shot. And the hard part is you have this on camera. I'm trying to hold it so that you guys can see. There we go. Alright, now that it's on, just to make sure it stays in place, I'm going to throw a screw in. Okay. Alright, now. There. So that one's on. Same thing for this side. Okay, so that side should be done. Let's put the other screw in. work on the other deck. What that was. Did I try to use a rubber band? I can't believe I would do that. But if I was desperate, maybe I did it to try to just get the tape out. But why wouldn't I just, I don't know. Whatever. Alright. What are they? Tape speed? That's right channel, left channel. What, is the preamp actually on the back of this? Must be, because this has more than that one does. This is the side that records. Huh. Alright, same deal. Oh, this one is a broken peg, so that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. I can work with that because I can make that fit. That's not that too bad. Alright, get all the dust and cat hair out of this. Man. Alright, how does these pulleys look? So it looks like this belt just snapped. It didn't melt. Or if it did melt, it just broke away. I'm wondering if I'm going to have to take this whole thing apart and re-grease it. But let's go for now and see what happens. One thing I do know about this deck is the transport or the loading mechanism is loud. It sounds like somebody's hitting it with a hammer. That was the big complaint about this model. If this works, you'll get to see what I mean. Okay. As I'm putting this on, grab this belt and pull it around. Did I mess up? No. Let's go. Drop a screw in just to hold it in place. Oh, this would be so great to get this working again. I'm a big analog person. I love analog. Digital's great. It's versatile. Really, it's got its time and it's got its place. But there's nothing like the sound of just, vinyl. And it's also the experience too. It's not just the sound. It's also the experience. Okay, so, and if those of you who like vinyl, you'll know what I'm talking about. When you're downloading, if you just download an album, an MP3 album, what are you getting? You're just getting some files. You go to the store and you buy an album, you got the album. You can, you open it, you have the whole album. You can drop on the table. You got the artwork. You got the papers. I mean, you're buying something. Okay, I think we're in good shape. So let me get this. This is filthy. Wish I had my all out of canned air. Wow, this is pretty nasty. Alright, well, for now, I'll be alright. I'll take it back apart at a later time and clean it out. That is, if this works. If not, it'll be taken apart much sooner. So the question is, how does this go on? There's 3 black screws, but I don't know where the screws are for the lid. Might be where I can find some. Actually, I think these here this just clips, and this clips. Is there any other ground? No. Okay. All right. Let's plug that in. That's nice and bent. Close back in and bend it in place. Okay, and where does this go? Oh, it's back here. All right. First time fired up in, well, probably close to 10 years, about 7 years or so. That screen needs to be clean. It's real dark. It's okay, well, that one won't play, but it could just be the pinch holder. It needs to be cleaned. Let's see this side. It's an auto reverse deck. Let me clean the pinch rollers off. Let me go get some Q-tips. Yeah, the capstan is filthy. That's probably why. The pinch roller is probably all dried out. I wonder if I have to buy a new one. And this is something that should be done anyway. I just want to see it actually play and work, and then I'll go back and do maintenance in a few minutes. Alright, on this one there are sensors that you have to hold up to make it. The capstan is turning. The pinch roller is pretty filthy. Yeah, it looks like it's not turning. But let's put the tape in. Yep. It's playing now. Didn't play before. Plays backwards. Plays forwards. Or I should say the B side and the A side. This side needs it too. Oops. Automatic music search. And AMS, different brands call different things. Some call it program search. All that does is it looks for a break in the music. And it will stop the tape, run it back to right at where the break started, and then play. So if you're playing a pre-recorded tape where each track has, you know, a 2 or 3 second break between each song, hit AMS, it'll find the next song. You can even go, whoop, let's go back one, you'll see. Oh, it found one. See? You can even do, set it to 3, I don't know how well you can see that. So these switches I can tell just by pushing them. I have to push them kind of hard. This whole thing needs to be cleaned. So at least we got the transports working. I can fast forward. This side needs to be cleaned out. Pinch rollers need to be cleaned, but at least the it won't play because the pinch rollers are dirty. But that's okay. I can clean the pinch rollers just like I did on this side. But this whole front needs to be taken out. I'm going to take this board out, clean the display, clean behind the plastic, and then clean this whole front panel off. We're going to make it look as good as new. And then I got to find some of these doors, these door panels. They might be around here somewhere. I'm not really sure. And then we'll put the cover on it, set it up for good, and I'll demonstrate it for you. So what I'm going to do here is just dismantle the front of it and completely dismantle the front of it so that I can take the faceplate and clean it. I'm not going to use any kind of spray-on chemicals or anything that you can buy it's made for plastic or for stereo equipment. I found the best thing to do and the cheapest thing to do, it works the best, is just dish soap, just regular dish soap. Put it in the sink with some warm water and a wash rag, and just wash it off. It doesn't seem to scratch it as long as you have a soft cloth, and it doesn't seem to take off the paint You know, obviously you want to watch how hard you scrub it, but I've never had a problem with it, and it usually comes out looking just like, you know, brand new. So you take out all the electronics and everything, and this is what it looked like before, and you can see some stuck on fingerprints and just oils from skin and dirt and dust. And I'm going to leave the eject buttons in because they'll be okay. And here it is after I cleaned it. I didn't film me cleaning it, obviously. It's pretty boring. But as you can see, it looks brand new. And that was just dish soap. Nothing special. And like I said, you can buy some sprays and different stuff for electronic cleaning if you don't want to take it apart. But it's worth it. It's worth just taking it apart, cleaning it out in the sink, putting it back together. It doesn't scratch the clear plastic for the display. Actually, I clean behind the display as well because there's a lot of dust gets stuck back there. And then, since everything's apart, I'm just going to clean out the mechanisms. I'm going to clean the capstands off. I'm going to clean the pinch rollers and the heads, obviously. You can see how filthy these Q-tips get. It's been a while since this one's been cleaned. And the stuff has set in there and it's hardened. The pinch rollers themselves have actually gotten kind of hard too because they're rubber. And then the display, the vacuum fluorescent display, I just cleaned off with some Mr. Clean. You can use Windex. And then just putting it back together. Now, as far as the buttons and everything on the board, I had said before that they, it was kind of hard to push, or you had to push them harder than usual. And that I just took some contact cleaner and sprayed the whole board down, and then just pushed the buttons a few times to kind of work the cleaner in there. Same thing for the potentiometers for the record level. I did the same thing. You spray it on this into the switch and turn it back and forth, and that's all you have to really do. And once you get it all back together, it's not too hard. It's just the reverse here. I kind of messed up. I forgot to put the power button on. And I have my spare screws because I'm missing 2 screws. So I found a couple that fit. And we'll just put it back together. Okay, everything's plugged in. Okay. Oh, forgot to put the knobs on. Yeah, it display's a little bit dark. It's getting old. It's not too bad though. So let me find a tape. And you remember this was the side that didn't play. Now it does. It's all cleaned up. It works. Just got to put the top back on. I got to find some screws because I don't know where the screws went for this. Just like everything else. But I guess when something sits around for a long time, that's what happens. I think it'll actually be okay that way. I can live with that. It's not perfect. I gotta find these drawers. But it's got new belts. It's been cleaned. I'm gonna probably clean it a little bit more as far as the drive. But other than that, I think it's in pretty good shape.